So Ted Cruz is there in Goffstown, New Hampshire. He is addressing Donald Trump's comments. Let's go ahead and listen in.
It was breathtaking. All the pundits, all the pollsters, everyone on the media said that Trump was going to win on Monday night. Sunday, I watched the news. I watched every single talking head say there was no way Cruz could win. Cruz can't win. Cruz can't win. Trump will win. It was guaranteed. But the people of Iowa rose up. They had something else to say about it. Monday night was an incredible grassroots victory. It was a victory for courageous conservatives across this country. It was the men and women of Iowa putting the country on notice that the media is not going to choose the next Republican nominee or the next president, that the pundits are not going to choose, that the cartel, the Washington cartel, the lobbyists and the money is not going to choose the next president, that it's going to be the grassroots, it's going to be we the people. And what is most encouraging that we saw in Iowa is we saw the old Reagan coalition coming together. We saw conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and Reagan Democrats all coming together.
Senator, right now, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts that Mr. Trump wants not only to do a redo of the Iowa caucuses, but thinks that your results should be nullified?
Well, listen, it is no surprise that Donald is throwing yet another temper tantrum, or if you like, yet another Trumper tantrum. It seems his reaction to everything is to throw a fit, to engage in insults, and I understand that Donald finds it very hard to lose, that he finds that very difficult for him. But at the end of the day, the Iowa people spoke. Donald Trump guaranteed a victory in Iowa, and then he lost. And he doesn't like that, and his reaction is that he breaks down. He really has problems. You know, he accused the people of Iowa of being stupid. In fact, he skipped the Iowa debate. It makes you wonder if his next step is to accuse the people of New Hampshire of being stupid, if he plans to skip the New Hampshire debate, and after that, if he plans to accuse the people of South Carolina of being stupid and skip the South Carolina debate. Listen, this is a job interview. Anyone who wants this job interview needs to come and answer the questions of the men and women of Iowa, of New Hampshire, of South Carolina. I'm here campaigning on the ground, answering the questions of the men and women here, because that's the respect you owe the people on the ground. And there's a reason that Donald engages in insult after insult, because he can't debate the substance. He doesn't actually want to talk about issues. Donald does not want to defend his lifelong support for socialized medicine, for Bernie Sanders-style socialized medicine. Donald wants to expand Obamacare, so that the federal government is in charge of your health care and my health care, is in charge of your doctor and my doctor. Now, he's entitled to that view. It's a view that would be very welcome in the Democratic Party. It's a view that both Hillary and Bernie Sanders support. But it is exactly the opposite of my view. My view is, if I'm elected president, we're going to repeal every word of Obamacare. Donald doesn't want to discuss that issue. He doesn't want to discuss his support for eminent domain, for taking private property and giving it to giant corporations and casinos. So instead, he engages in insults. I think the people are interested in substance and record and a positive, optimistic
Senator, this
vision.
line of attack, though, he is calling you a cheater. He's calling you a fraud. Does this cross the line for you?
Oh, listen, Donald's insults get more and more hysterical the more and more upset he gets. And that's fine. He can do that. I'm not going to respond in kind.
Do you think they're funny?
I think they're very funny. I think Donald, I wake up every day and laugh at the latest thing Donald has tweeted, because he's losing it. Look, we need a commander-in-chief, not a Twitterer-in-chief. We need someone with judgment and the temperament to keep this country safe. I don't know anyone who would be comfortable with someone who behaves this way having his finger on the button. I mean, we're liable to wake up one morning and Donald, if he were president, would have nuked Denmark. That's not the temperament of a leader to keep this country safe. We need a president who will have the back of our fighting men and women, who will have their back and will be clear-eyed and focused on our enemies, on radical Islamic terrorism, and on defeating ISIS. That's what I will do every day. And the American people are not interested in this circus sideshow of insults. You know, my girls are 5 and 7. And I got to tell you, Caroline and Catherine are better behaved than a presidential candidate who responds by insulting everyone every day when he loses.
Senator, you condemned what your campaign did to Dr. Ben Carson just before the Iowa caucus. Will you fire or suspend anyone in your campaign for putting out misinformation?
Well, what you said is not accurate. I didn't condemn anyone. Listen, Ben Carson is a terrific man. He is a man of principle. He's a man of character. Ben and Candy have become good friends, and I really like and respect them. Our political team passed on a CNN news story that CNN broke. The news story said that Ben Carson was not continuing from Iowa on to New Hampshire. He was not continuing to South Carolina. Instead, he was going home to Florida. That was a news story CNN had posted. And our political team passed it on to our supporters. It was breaking news that was relevant. Now, subsequently, the Carson campaign put out another statement saying that he was not, in fact, suspending his campaign. And I apologize to Ben for our team not passing on their subsequent clarification. But this is not a campaign that scapegoats our staffers, that holds someone out and fires them for political purpose. So no, we're not going to scapegoat anybody. And I would note that the news story that our team passed on was true and accurate. CNN reported it, and in fact, Ben did go to Florida instead of New Hampshire or South Carolina. And so you got to understand.
Is it a dirty trick to confuse voters?
Is it a dirty trick to pass on your news stories? You're in the business. Would you think it was a dirty trick if I was forwarding an ABC story?
But you never clarified.
Or is it just a dirty trick to pass on CNN stories?
But you didn't clarify, so those voters could have been confused.
Look, passing on a true and accurate news story, it is in fact something that voters found relevant. And I would note, listen, there is a reason why the media is chattering about this. Because the media wants to stir up a fight between Ben Carson and me. I love Ben. I'm not interested in criticizing him. I will praise Ben. I will praise his character. That's the only place I'm going. And there's a reason Donald Trump wants to focus on it. Because he wants a circuit sideshow, and he knows all the folks in the media will happily oblige. How about talking about the substantive issues? You want to talk about something substantive? Let's talk about amnesty. Let's talk about the fact that Donald Trump supports amnesty. Now, some people are surprised at that because they say, gosh, Donald uses really harsh rhetoric on immigration, so he must oppose amnesty. Well, if you listen to what Donald has actually proposed on the presidential trail, he has said we should deport people here illegally, but then let them come back to this country immediately as U.S. citizens. I got to say, I disagree with that. That's called touchback. It's actually an idea establishment Republicans have pushed for a long time. And it simply involves flying people here illegally back home, letting them touch the ground for a second, and then they come back as citizens. I'm the only one in this race who has consistently opposed amnesty, consistently opposed citizenship. And I'll tell you, letting 12 million people here illegally become U.S. citizens, which is the position of Donald Trump, it's the position of Marco Rubio, and it's the position of Hillary Clinton. That's going to do nothing for the hardworking men and women in New Hampshire who are losing their jobs because of illegal immigration, who are seeing their incomes driven down and their wages driven down because of illegal immigration. And as president, I will secure the borders and keep this country safe. Let me say two final things. Number one, I think the people of New Hampshire are eagerly awaiting the news whether Donald will join us for the debate here in New Hampshire. He skipped the Iowa debate and he lost. And you know, he was apparently afraid of Megyn Kelly, and I get that Megyn is a very frightening person, and Donald is apparently a fragile soul, where getting difficult questions from Megyn Kelly really would have dismayed him. But I think you owe the voters the respect of standing in front of them, so I'm waiting to see whether or not Donald will show up at the New Hampshire debate. And when he skipped the Iowa debate, I invited Donald Trump to participate in a one-on-one debate, and he declined. He was afraid to do a one-on-one debate. He put out a statement. He said, well, once Ted is the clear second-place finisher, then I'll debate him one-on-one. Well, Donald, the people of Iowa have done you one better. Now Donald is the clear second-place finisher. We won Iowa. He took second. But I will accept his offer on the terms he offered. Now that he's the clear second-place finisher, let's do a one-on-one debate. You and me, Donald. You can stand there and insult me all day long, and I'll talk about issues and substance. And as I mentioned before, if he's afraid of having Megyn Kelly moderate, then we can have Mark Levin moderate, or we can have Sean Hannity moderate, or we can have Rush Limbaugh moderate, or if all of those are too frightening, then we could just have the men and women in New Hampshire. Let's do a town hall. Get a couple of hundred men and women from New Hampshire and let them ask us questions. And I would invite Donald to do it any day between now and the New Hampshire primary. Under the terms he said, he ought to accept that. But my prediction right now is he's not going to accept that, because what Donald does when he loses is he blames everybody else. It's never Donald's fault. It's always somebody else's fault, and it's always an insult. And I think people are tired of that. They're ready for a leader who takes responsibility, who knows what he believes, and who has the courage to stand with the American people.
Senator, anything on Rand Paul's supporters, Senator? Anything on Rand Paul?
Down in front. Down in front.
All right,
He's out of the race. He's a colleague. Hold on.
Stay down, guys.
Sorry. He's a colleague of yours in the Senate. He's out of the race now. You two have really fought it at some of the debates. What are you going to do? First of all, any comment on Rand Paul, and then how do you try to pick up some of those liberty supporters that your campaign is going after?
Well, listen, Rand Paul is a friend. He and I have worked very closely together. Rand came and campaigned for me when I ran for Senate. He campaigned across the state of Texas supporting me. And he and I have been side by side on a great many fights in the U.S. Senate standing for liberty. I wish Rand and Kelly well. They worked very, very hard. They ran a hard campaign. I wish them well. And you know, I'm very encouraged by the Liberty Movement supporters who have come behind our campaign, particularly here in the Granite State. We have an incredible coalition of Liberty Movement supporters who are supporting our campaign. And to everyone in this race who was supporting Rand Paul or who was supporting other candidates who have dropped out of the race, I would say we would welcome you as part of our team. This is a time for unity. What astonished the pundits in Iowa was the unity of the voters there, that we saw that Reagan coalition coming together. And listen, if anyone's going to win the nomination, you've got to be able to bring together a broad coalition across ideological and philosophical lanes. It's why it's so encouraged to see conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and Reagan Democrats all coming together. That's our coalition. That's what it takes to win the nomination. That's what it takes to win the general and beat Hillary Clinton. And I have been so encouraged by the Liberty Movement folks coming to us, and I hope we see a great many more of Rand supporters. They will find a home, and we will welcome them with open arms. And every one of those supporters can know that I have spent my entire adult life fighting to defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that's exactly what I will do as President of the United States.
Senator Paul himself? Yeah.
Make up 20 points.
Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it.
I keep it now.
You got it. I share it.
Seeing Ted Cruz there in Goffstown, New Hampshire, really taking aim at Donald Trump over Donald Trump's reaction to coming in second place in Iowa. Donald Trump saying that Ted Cruz may have stolen the caucus election, that he may have done so illegally, although then he backtracked a little bit on a tweet, taking out the word illegally. But Trump clearly not happy now a day later with his position in the Iowa caucus, and it sounds like Ted Cruz is not going to sit back and have it.
No, he says that Donald Trump is acting worse than his young daughters, that he's basically being childish, and he called it a Trumper tantrum. Trumper tantrum. We still have Steve Shigaris with us, who is in Washington. Steve, you just heard Senator Cruz. Your reaction?
Well, it's clear that he's buoyed by his victory in Iowa. He's definitely strutting, suggesting that all of this is because Trump lost, and this is just Trump being a sore loser. And I think it also is sort of indicative of the fact that Ted Cruz isn't afraid to go after Donald Trump anymore. I mean, we saw a little bit of it before the Iowa caucuses, but for a long time, Cruz was sort of pulling his punches when it came to Trump. Not anymore. I mean, this is, I think, part of the playbook now for him moving forward. Trump is still by far, at least according to polls that were taken before Iowa, by far the leader in New Hampshire and in states moving forward. So Cruz is using this as an opportunity to try to knock Trump down a few pegs.
Yeah, we're just hearing now that Trump is replying on Twitter as well. So let's put that up. But, you know, I thought it was interesting, too, Steve, is that not only is he talking back, here's Donald Trump saying, Cruz just lied again. I am and have been totally against Obamacare, repeal and replace. I thought it was interesting that Cruz went after him for his temperament on whether he's fit to be commander-in-chief, basically saying, look, you can't have a guy who's going to react like this to a second-place finish. If he reacts like this to a second-place finish in the Iowa caucuses, what would he do if he had his finger on the button of the nuclear bomb?
Yeah, it's an interesting argument to make. The question is, you know, are Donald Trump's supporters so angry at the establishment and so upset about how things are working in Washington that they don't really care that somebody like Trump, somebody with that kind of temperament, is going to go in there and shake things up. Maybe they want that. I don't know. But it's an interesting argument to make. And you know, this is Ted Cruz. Like, there's been no question this guy is very good at sound bites. You've seen him on the debate stage. He's very good in that format. He's good at coming up with arguments to really sort of promote himself, but also denigrate his opponents. He just hasn't done it much with Trump, and so now he's really going full fire against Trump, and these are interesting arguments he's making against him.
Yeah, Steve, it's also interesting that other candidates have tried to go after Donald Trump. They've not been successful because he is struck back either on Twitter or on the campaign stage. But you have one interesting thing here now. Ted Cruz actually won Iowa.
That's right.
So he can say, you know what, I'm strutting, I'm walking here, you are second, you're a loser, and that is getting under Trump's skin. It's sort of psychological in a way.
He's a winner, so he can do this and get away with it, at least for now. Who knows what it's going to be on February 10th after the New Hampshire primary. But, you know, you look at the people who went after Donald Trump before. It was Rick Perry, who dropped out. It was Bobby Jindal, who dropped out. It was Lindsey Graham, who dropped out. It was Jeb Bush, who did very poorly in Iowa and is doing poorly in the polls now. It was Rand Paul, who dropped out today. So, you know, it was a group of people who were, I think, trying to use them going after Trump as a way to boost their own stature. Well, Ted Cruz's stature has been boosted now, and now he feels he can go and do this and really, you know, do it from an offensive stand as opposed to a defensive stand.
We also heard Ted Cruz making a pitch there for the followers of Rand Paul. Said he's been out, you know, campaigning with Rand Paul in Texas. That he and Rand Paul are friends, and was inviting people to join him up on in his race for New Hampshire as well. You think that will work?
I mean, who are Rand Paul's supporters at this point? The guy got 5%, a distant 5th place in the Iowa caucuses. He's polling in low single digits everywhere else. So it could work. I mean, Cruz probably does, for whatever few Rand Paul supporters there are left, Cruz probably does line up pretty good with them in terms of the Tea Party libertarian type mindset. But, you know, there are others, you know, maybe even Rubio and others that are in there that may be able to, even Trump could peel some away. But again, we're talking about a real small subset of people right now.